What's up out there, YouTube? Go ahead and subscribe to Raze Chaos for great pop reviews. Spread love. It's the Brooklyn way. Wait a minute. Brooklyn? No, we're in Chicago. Spread love Chicago way.
And welcome back, everybody. My name is Raze Chaos. You've made it back to my channel, and this is an exciting video. Primarily because Sandman is one of Raze's favorite comic series of all time. That's not going to change, even though, you know, the writer has obviously turned out to be, allegedly at this point, at the time of this recording, has been doing some bad stuff. I say allegedly, but things aren't looking good, and he's really not helping himself. So, have a feeling this guy's going to end up having to pay the piper at some point. But at the same time, Raze loved the series, and the actions of the author is not going to affect the art as far as Raze is concerned. While he probably won't contribute to anything new the person has done, it's not like that means Raze has got to throw out all his stuff that he loved that meant something to him. And yeah, basically, since the Netflix series is going to continue on without him, Raze is comfortable going ahead and getting the rest of the Sandman pops as they go. If they make more, it might be a question, but for this batch, yeah, this is gonna happen. And like I said, this is really from the TV series. I'm gonna go ahead and put this idiot away because he's trying to get away. Did you see him just pull off like that? That was what is your problem,
sir? Oh my goodness, sir, it's me. It's Lucien. You're home.
He wants to be on camera. He wants to be off camera. It's like, yeah, make up your mind. But yeah, this is Lucien. This is, this is the version of him from the TV series. And I say him, even though it's clearly a woman. And that is primarily because that's now not how he looked in the Sandman series. He actually, if you really want to get picky about it, the way Lucien looked in the comic book series was actually like this. Much, much different. He's actually, you can't necessarily tell from this little figure, but he's actually extremely tall, whereas the Lucien from the TV series was actually very short. But they were still both, I guess you'd say, they were still the Librarian. That'll make it easy. Raze is trying to see what this book says on here, but he'll probably save it for when he takes it out. And the reason he's not taking it out yet is because Raze is going to talk about Lucien in general. Raze is going to talk a little bit more about the Librarian of the endless, of the dreaming. There are little bits about Lucien that has escaped a lot of even the biggest fans. Lucien, like a lot of what happened, what Neil Gaiman did with the Dreaming, a lot of people thought that the Dreaming was, something that Neil Gaiman had come up with all on his own, and that's not necessarily true. Yes, he came up with the idea, but he basically had the foresight to actually bring in DC characters, Lucien being one of them. Lucien actually first appeared in Weird Mystery Tales number 18. And that came back in 1975. So the big surprise there is actually the fact that he was basically added on. He was still like a librarian of sorts, but it was in a horror anthology book. And one of the hosts of said horror anthology books was actually Destiny. The one member of the Endless that Neil Gaiman did not create. Destiny used to be the host of used to be a host of that series, and he was not always in it. He co-hosted it with Eve, which is another character that shows up prominently in The Dreaming. But yeah, that's where those two characters first came out, and that's where Lucien showed up as well. Those three Sandman characters showed up in the same book. And if that seems odd to you, just keep in mind that both Cain and Abel, that hosted the House of Mystery and House of Secrets, those were both later on. House of Secrets, House of Mystery, both showed up in The Dreaming, both with the caretakers of Cain and Abel. He basically used these anthology hosts to put into The Dreaming, because when you think about it, what are like the anthologies except collections of dreams or nightmares or something? And they're basically being guided through. Like, if there were a bunch of people dreaming at the time, and and he's the one to be sorting it out. That's a pretty big job. And it makes sense that dreams are like stories, so that's how that works. The fun part that I always thought about Lucien and the library in The Dreaming is that the library in The Dreaming, which is constantly growing, is basically every book that's ever been dreamt of. So, it's the idea of what he was putting forth on this was the thought to make you think about is, from concept to publication, stories change. And the idea of you could get, if you went to get into Dream's library and picked up, say, we'll just go ahead and go with one of the big ones, Stephen King's It. If you got the copy that they have in The Dreaming's library, it would be very different from what actually was published. And that's the whole idea, and why it keeps expanding, because you probably have different versions of the same book as that turns into what it is. Because, writers tend to come up with the idea, just kind of like when Raze does his videos. He has an idea as to what he's going to do, but since he doesn't plan these things very well, or at all, really, he just kind of sits down and talks, the subject of the video and everything, he never knows where he's going to end up when he's talking about these things. So that's a perfect metaphor for basically that is what the library is. It is a metaphor for the writing process, which is really, really cool. And I appreciate it. I do not know why they had to change Lucien for the TV series. But it's not that big of a deal. I mean, there aren't that many people that were hardcore Lucien fans that were just like, hey, I remember that character from 1975 when he first appeared in a obscure DC horror anthology. That's not what he was like. I mean, even Sandman fans, I think they were more impressed, like hardcore Sandman fans were more like disturbed by the fact that Lucien is very tall and this Lucien is actually short. And I think that was probably the biggest, or the hardest part of it to swallow, the hardest part to wrap your head around, because he's you're used to seeing him being so tall. You're used to seeing him at times looking down at Dream as he talks to him because he is that tall. So, yeah, I mean, it was played wonderfully in the show, and you really couldn't complain about any part of that, other than the physical differences, and the tallest being the most prominent, and I would argue to say the most valid complaint about the change. As far as switching genders, who cares? I mean, I heard some people upset about giving Lucien pointed ears, but now here I have a PVC figure from the set, and if you look at it, pointed ears. He's always had pointed ears. But yeah, some people have a problem with the changing from male to female. But I mean, these are fictional characters. Who cares? It was really more of the image change for Raze. It was just like, that was the thing that was, Lucien should be taller. And that's not a big complaint by any means. But we're going to go ahead and take this one out and have a look at it, because we've got Matthew the Raven here too. And here we have Lucien. This is a great look, and Raze is trying to read the freaking... I think it might be just too small to actually read the cover of the book. Yeah. Raze will check later, because the name of the book really isn't that important. And if it turns out that it is, yeah, Raze isn't going to be saying anything because the video's already going to be over. And he'll know, and you'll have to go find it. Find it yourself. Raze doesn't like to give all the information he has, because if you're interested in this, it's more fun to dig around and find out what Raze didn't tell you. Yeah, that's kind of how Raze is with all his videos. He's like, yeah, don't think I'm going to mention that because that'll be a fun discovery. But yeah, I love how they did the glasses on this. Love the style. I even love the fact that he's wearing purple, which, you know, obviously in the comic he tended to wear grays and just basically flat colors. I thought it was cool. I pretty much enjoyed the series. And I think this is a great looking pop. While Raze would love to have a more comic accurate Lucien, you know, Raze will say that about any any adapted character. He would love to have a comic book accurate version of DC characters, because those are his favorite things. His second favorite things. But part of the excitement of getting this pop anyway, aside from the fact that Lucien's such an obscure character that didn't really think that was going to happen, the more likely character that's included with this is actually Matthew the Raven. And part of the reason why he's was more likely, I guess, is because he's got a bigger history. Matthew the Raven originally was Matthew Cable, who was married to a woman named Abigail Cable. And, you know, they... her maiden name, of course, was Arcane. So that's Abby Arcane, as in, you know, the Swamp Thing villain, the Anton Arcane, you know, the main, basically Swamp Thing's arch nemesis. In doing so, basically, Matt Cable works for, is possessed, fought Swamp Thing, and ends up in a coma. And Swamp Thing goes to take care of Abigail Cable, and takes care of her and helps her because, you know, Anton Arcane is evil and still has his sights set on his daughter, wanting to possess her like he did her husband. Yeah, obviously that's a whole Swamp Thing story, and it continues on. Eventually, Matthew succumbs in his coma and dies, symbolically having a moment where he is wasted away to the point where, as Abigail is actually talking to Matt, saying, although I didn't like the alcoholic, demonic possessed creature that you turned into, I still love Matt Cable, the man I married. Which it's kind of confusing, because I think that he was even possessed by Anton Arcane at one point, who had possessed Matt to essentially try and take advantage of his own daughter. That's just how evil that dude is. But as she's talking to him and, talking to her comatose husband, right as she's saying that she still loves the man that she originally met, and, wishes that none of this, she understands that all of this has happened to him because of getting involved with her. If he had gotten involved with somebody else, their evil fathers wouldn't necessarily have possessed him. He wouldn't have had to deal with demons, which essentially drove him to drink himself into a coma. And so yeah, as she's apologizing and she's saying, still love you, but I have to move on. I can't keep clinging to this. As she's saying this, his ring slides off of his finger and bounces onto the ground, as if to say, please, yes, move on. And then he passes on, basically. He dies, the ring comes off. I don't remember exactly which order that happened in, but it was very symbolic because, it's Alan Moore and he's amazing. But when he passes on, he is actually, the thing is, since he was in a coma when he died, he basically enters, since he is already asleep and he's dreaming in the coma, he's already in the dreaming. So when his physical body dies, he gets to stay there, and he actually becomes a raven, and he's essentially Dream's messenger. And while he still talks and has a lot of questions, he's drawn to stick around with Lucien quite a bit, and he doesn't understand why. And it's a great story, and that it makes sense that these two would be packaged together. And later on, Matthew has all kinds of questions because, hey, what is all this? I was just a guy, now I'm here, now I'm a freaking bird. He goes on about it, and he keeps asking, and Lucien always kind of refers to previous ravens. And when he asks what happens to the previous ravens or why they're still not around, Lucien does not say anything else about it. But at one point, obviously, the fates of the other ravens kind of vary, but what Lucien doesn't share with him is that Lucien himself used to be a raven in the dreaming. And he alludes to that, like after a certain point, a certain length of servitude to Morpheus, the Lord of Dreams, he eventually gets a non-raven form, I guess you'd say. But yeah, Raven, he's his best purpose as far as the comic series goes is the link to everything, because he can fly into the normal world, but into the waking world. He can make his way into the waking world, but he cannot talk unless he's in the dreaming. So a lot of times he took advantage of the fact that the idea of that when you see a raven or a crow looking at you, or when you look at one and it does feel like they're looking back at you. It does make you think that they are plotting something. So really cool to have, very important character to have if you have a Sandman collection. Yeah, this is it. Raze went on a little bit longer than he thought he was going to. Don't know why he didn't think he wasn't. I honestly, had plenty to talk about with both characters. But for some reason didn't think he would. But as he said, when sitting down to do this, he thinks it's going to be easy, but then he goes on and thinks of other things to talk about, and it makes them longer. That's why if these were books, Sandman's library be growing as we speak. But at any rate, Raze is going to go ahead and get out of here. Let me know what you think about Lucien, if you've read the comic, what you thought of the series or the TV series. Let me know if you knew that Matthew the Raven actually came from the Swamp Thing series. Or if you even knew that Lucien was, I mean, obviously you could have guessed he was part of the Sandman series, but it was, not a lot of people knew that he was actually a DC character before the Sandman series came into existence. So let me know what you knew about that, and I'm going to go ahead and get out of here now, but never forget that life is full of odd moments. You never know when you're going to be defined.